Hey, this is Leah McHenry from the Legacy Launchpad program, and this is my Legacy Launch Pod podcast. I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in. This is episode 1, and I'm going to give you a little heads up. The audio is really rough. For some reason, when I recorded it just on my phone, there was no earbuds or anything like that, and I was walking outside through a field, and it sounds like I'm wearing a retainer. Like the S sounds are really weird. So just be prepared that it sounds really rough and it's a little bit weird, but I promise the audio will get better over time. And let this just serve as a piece of encouragement to you that you don't have to get it perfect. It can even be a bit ugly when you go to launch something or you just go to move in the right direction and get it happening. Perfectly okay. So let me be an example to you, all right? And then I'm preparing you ahead of time with this little intro. Thank you so much for tuning in. And then one little favor to ask. If you like what I'm talking about, if you like the content my husband and I are sharing on this, would you please leave us a review and maybe share it with a friend who could use this encouragement? We are on a mission to help 1,000 families build a legacy through their business. We are kingdom-minded people, and we believe in creating a huge impact in the world through business and through the family enterprise. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy this.
This is, by the slip of the tongue, the title of this podcast. I decided to name it Legacy Launchpad after my signature coaching program, and see like, Legacy Launch Pod. Think we might have to go with this Legacy Launch Pod. And as you can hear, I sound a bit out of breath because I just walked up a large hill, and you probably hear crunching noises because we are on a walk. This is a walk we do almost every day of the week if it's not pouring rain. And so the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that when you know you need to do something, don't wait for everything to be under the perfect conditions. Because if it was the perfect conditions, and if I could make this podcast everything that I want it to be, I would be sitting in a garden in the Cotswolds in a house that I've bought in the English countryside, and have it all perfectly match my brand aesthetic and everything I want. And instead, here I am walking up a hill on our walk, and there's noise and there's crunching, and we're doing it. We're doing this because this is a time where we're walking and talking. We're spending time digging into topics anyways. So it's actually about what's the easiest thing for me to do to move forward. And I even went back and forth a bunch of times about, if you're going to bother recording, you got to set up video, because if you don't do video, then I can't split it up into clips and turn it into social media and repurpose on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. Here's me coaching myself. It doesn't matter right now. Right now, the only thing that matters is that I do the next easy thing. What's the lowest hanging fruit that's easy for me to do without it being perfect, without it being in all the formats, and without all the blah, blah, blah? It's just record audio. That's what's easy to do. And it's fun. And we're talking anyway. That's my advice to myself, is do the next lowest hanging fruit thing that's easy that I know I need to do, even though it's not the way I want it. Because this is how we built any business. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. As cliche as that is, 100% true. So without further ado, I have my husband, Steve, here. And how long we've been married now?
Almost 20 years.
Yeah. So we've been through a few things. It's all been smooth sailing, right? So you'll get to know our sarcasm pretty soon. He's more sarcastic than I am. And half the time, still to this day, he'll say something. I'm like, are you joking? Or are you not joking? I still don't understand it. So just be prepared for that. And I was going to say, what else about our sense of humor? We're pretty, I would say, sometimes politically incorrect.
Politically incorrect. We don't abide by any of that garbage. I don't care. Here's the point, too. Whatever comes out of our mouth, it's authentic.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So,
exactly.
Politically incorrect, it's just authentically who we are.
He's saying deal with it.
Deal with it.
Okay, switching topics for a second. This podcast has no official format. This is just an opening hello and stream of consciousness. But in the future, I will actually have a format. And one of the things I'm going to do is allow for question submission from absolutely anybody. And I will pick 1 or 2 questions that Steve and I will do a little deep dive on that. Like, just pretend we're coaching you. So you kind of get to experience that. But it's also a great prompt for us to go into a myriad of other thoughts. That will be one of the things we do. And then I think I'm going to share some of the fun wins that are happening within my own community, the Legacy Launchpad community. There's always some win or breakthrough that somebody's having. And I think that'll be inspirational to everyone as well. And then I also thought we can share from our personal life, our work life, what we're working on, and then maybe something about our family or our values, homeschool, like that sort of thing. I think that'll give us a pretty good structure to go off of. So if you've got feedback from me on format, structure, ideas for this launch pod, send me a message on Instagram, give me a follow there, send me a message there, or you can email me at hello@lmchenry.com. And also for the record, in case you ever get confused, McHenry is my maiden name. I became known online as Leah McHenry because that was my stage name for music. My background was as a singer-songwriter in the Celtic metal fantasy world. McHenry is definitely got that Scottish-Irish ring to it. I keep my maiden name as my stage name and for privacy reasons, all that kind of thing. That's the first thing. Some people might not know the businesses we have.
Since this episode 1 should probably give a little bit of a synopsis about who we are, what we do, and how we got here. Because most people who are listening to this probably don't know.
No, that's really true.
So why would they listen?
Why would you even want to listen? So we're really nobody, but God has been doing a lot for us in our lives through different mediums like business. Business is like, outside of marriage, one of the biggest character boot camps you'll ever be in. And I think business is second to that. Business is the second biggest character boot camp you could ever go through. If you make it, and if you're in it for the long haul, whether you're a six-figure business owner, smaller than that or larger, basically the bigger you go, the more your character goes through some serious transformations, and you have to get through multiple blocks. It's like a video game. You have to level up. And in each level up, there's a big boss, right? And you have to conquer the boss in order to get through to the next side. And we've been going through a lot of that. So let's give a quick little background.
Well, just on the leveling up, it's always an internal boss. It's sometimes masked as an external challenge, but it actually is all internal. Something you have to internally overcome or move through and grow through in your character. That's usually the boss that you face. You have to level up in business and in life in general, like even just marriage and raising kids.
That's really good because I think a lot of people think that the bosses are external. It's the environment. It's everybody else. It's the economy.
Yeah.
The boss is everything else except for them.
It's the supply chain. It's the structure of your corporation or taxes or whatever, but it's really not that at all.
Yeah. The big bad boss that you have to beat is inside of you. And it's your own limiting beliefs. It's your attitude. So we started out as, I was a homeschool mom. My full-time job and a half was taking care of our several little ones. And Steve was a self-employed carpenter. He's been self-employed his whole life. We got to the point where we were just not great with money to begin with, living on one income. And you, as a sole proprietor too, that you were here in Canada, that's the worst tax bracket you can possibly be in.
Yeah.
In terms of structure and then taxation level.
Yeah, totally.
So we got to the point where we weren't great at managing and saving money to begin with, and then getting taxed the maximum amount while trying to take care of 3-4 little kids, and then not wonderful, wise spending habits, not a lot of discipline there. And we found ourselves in a really not great place that was incredibly stressful on a marriage, incredibly stressful overall, because little did I know at the time, I had this like fire brewing in me, this ambition that was brewing in me, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't even know that I was an entrepreneur. I never knew that I could be a business owner. But at the time, what I was doing was I was devouring books, and we had recently deepened our faith. We had learned more about Reformed theology. We both grew up charismatic, and not to go into a rabbit trail on that one, but
Touch on our background.
just to touch on the background. And also within there, we did actually try a couple of MLMs. I really wanted to make more income. I felt like we were like running on a treadmill going nowhere. That's how it felt. And I was like, we're not going to be able to buy a house. We're not going to be able to do anything. And in fact, just it's such a struggle month to month. How are we going to do anything anytime? So we knew we needed to increase the income. That we knew. And we understood, like, the thing about these MLMs is that some of them have some actually decent training in them in terms of, they got like a lot of motivational speakers. They teach you a little bit about sales, how to network, relationship driven marketing and stuff.
Personal development.
Yeah.
It's all about relational marketing. The MLMs are.
Yeah.
And so you do have to grow in your personal skills, communication skills, and all of that in order to excel.
We're not inherently against network marketing as a business model. We know it works for a lot of businesses, it works for a lot of people, but ultimately we just didn't go anywhere with it. And we tried pretty hard at a couple of them. And one time you went off the deep end on a new one. Remember that one? You're like, you come home with this huge like catalog of products. And I was like, oh my word. And you're like, yeah, I just want to, this sounds really good. I want to try it. But we never went anywhere with any of these.
No, for multiple reasons that we won't go into. But yeah, that just was not our lane.
Not our path. That might surprise people. I don't think that most of my clients even know that about us. So then after that, it did just plant the seeds of business, being business minded. But it wasn't until we really reached a place where you were on the phone with someone from Canada Revenue Agency, and that agent recommended to you that we file bankruptcy because we had gotten so far behind on taxes. And the reason we got so far behind on taxes, it wasn't because I said before, we weren't great at managing, and that's true, but truly the taxation was so high that we had to decide, well, are we going to set money aside for taxes, or are we going to feed our family? Which one?
But not only that, it's all, people probably don't understand this, but taxation isn't all about what you pay at the end of the year. There's taxes that you're paying on every single transaction that you make. Everything you buy is taxed at the till. So there's that hidden tax, right? Which is why we can say easily, at least in Canada and probably in the US now, getting close to at least more than 50% of your income is taxed, right? So you're left with 50% of what you actually made. Yeah. And the cost of living, at least here in BC, is ridiculous. So that combined with not having a really great financial background, not having good knowledge of how to handle finances, how to be a good steward of them. Again, not like we were going crazy, but we were essentially living beyond our means. And that combined with the taxation was really
recipe for disaster.
Not a good state to be in. So yeah,
that
and their wording was just stop the bleeding and file bankruptcy.
Yeah. And so I was already fed up with our situation before that. But let me tell you, when he told me that that's what they recommended, I almost flipped a lid. I mean, a switch went off in me for sure. You saw it. I think I was raging. It was like a rage. And I knew, I was like, okay, there's only a couple options here. If we file bankruptcy, then we're never going to get what we want, or not never, but for a long, long time. All the consequences that come with filing bankruptcy. Yeah. And so I was like, that's not an option. So I just ruled that right out day one. And then the second thing is I guess I didn't try to bottle up or shoo away the anger and the rage. Instead, I funneled it. Into, I didn't even know what it was going to be yet, quite frankly. But I funneled it into something. I was like, well, then I'll put it into my music career. And that actually was the first thing I did. I was like, I'm going to increase my fan base and I'll start a subscription or a membership of some kind. And that's actually what I did. So long before I ever taught anybody about how to do business, I actually figured it out for myself. I already had a tiny little email list. I started building that email list and I launched a very low cost membership and my fans bought it. And that one launch paid off that chunk of debt that we almost filed bankruptcy over. Do you remember that moment?
I do. That's where you, in this case, made your first 6 figures.
And it wasn't 6 figures all in one chunk.
No,
but,
of course.
But it was 5 figures when I first launched it.
Yep.
And then I remember writing down on a piece of paper, I will make 6 figures, $100,000 from my music in the next year. I wrote it down. So it was like a decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't a goal. It
wasn't pie in the sky. It wasn't like, I hope to do this. It was, this is what I'm doing. And that's how decisive you have to be if you're going to do anything. There can't be a plan B. This is the plan. And this is what I'm doing.
Yep. So I made that decision. And then I think it was like 6 months, not a year, that I hit that.
Yeah.
And it was mostly with a membership and then merchandise. And if I did a few releases and stuff, it didn't take much to get there. I figured there's that famous 1,000 fan model. And the theory goes like this. All you need to hit 6 figures is 1,000 super fans who pay you $100 in a year, over the course of a year. That's really easy to hit. 1,000 super fans. So I used that as my model, and sure enough, I did it. And I did it in half the time I thought I would. Later on, I thought, well, you know what would be good is I started looking at creating some other little sources of revenue. I thought, well, I just hit that 6 figures. What if I put my knowledge into an ebook? And that can just be for other musicians as part of my 6 figures. And so I thought, yeah, maybe I'll try to market this thing. And it didn't really go anywhere. I tried selling that ebook and nobody really bought it. It did not do what I thought it would. And then it was later on that I started studying online marketing. And I realized, oh, you know what's so much more valuable to people is a video course. And so essentially I took the outline of that, whatever, $7 ebook, and I turned it into $2.5 million. $7 ebook versus $2.5 million video course.
Yeah.
When I say that, I used the outline as my curriculum and expanded that curriculum, added more to it, workbooks, downloads, audios, transcripts, things that increase the value. And I learned how to do presentation on webinars. And because I saw somebody else doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, that was really bad. I think I could do it even just slightly better. And I think I've got this. And so I learned how to do webinars. I remember the first time we did a webinar, I think one person bought. Was it one?
It was one.
We're jumping up and down for joy.
Whoa, one person? Okay, that means we can do it again.
We can do it again. So then we did it again. And next time I think it was 3 sales. And this was at the time we launched it, I think, at $300 price point.
Yeah.
And it ended up settling at about a $997 price point in the end. We went, $497 for the longest time.
$497 for
that was
the first 3 years.
Yeah. And that was in the heyday when courses were really just taking off and it was newer.
Yeah.
So that back then was considered not high end by any means, but not super cheap.
Yeah.
So anyway, it went to $1 million, I think, in like 8 or 9 months or somewhere around there. 6 months.
It was April of 2016.
Oh, when we hit that.
We hit the 1 million mark.
Yeah.
After we invested $20,000.
Yeah, into coaching.
To go see a business expert coach.
Yeah.
In Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Flew first class to get there.
Yeah.
And that changed our entire life.
Yeah. And you know what actually changed our life was taking notes and then implementing literally every single thing he told us to do. Going to the coach didn't do anything except give us a game plan.
Right. So the coach wasn't the magic pill. It was what the coach said to do and us doing it.
Yeah.
That was the magic right there.
Execution is everything. Yeah. It's do or die.
And quick.
Do it
quick
fast.
Execution, even when you don't know the outcome, even when it scares you, like when you started doing webinars.
Oh, yeah.
You're like probably shaking in your boots. It was something that you weren't comfortable with, but you did it anyways.
Yeah. Right. And that turned into not just the first million in the first 6 months, but then by the time it was the next year after we had started, we had actually hit about $2.5 million in the first year. So imagine us going from struggling carpentry to trying to make MLMs work, which didn't work, to me having some success with my music career, to $2.5 million with an e-course we had no idea was going to have that kind of impact. It was shocking, to say the least.
Hey, it's Leah again. Thanks so much for tuning into episode 1 and putting up with our weird audio, but I hope you enjoyed the content, and Steve and I have so much we want to dig into, and I know it ends abruptly right there, and that's because we were at the end of our walk and we were at the car and the kids were waiting for us, so you know how life goes. We finished the rest of the story in the next one, so it continues from where we left off. So go ahead and binge it now. And I also just want to say thanks again for letting me share a bit of our story. I hope it encourages you. If it does, would you please leave us a review and share with a friend? Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one.